Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Last week, the Reserve Bank of India put out a circular that allowed for payment settlements for international trade to be conducted in rupees. This is an interesting development, and in a minute, we'll see why. What does this mean? Assuming I'm an importer of goods and services, say, for example, I want to import goods from South Africa. If a South African bank opens what is called a Special Vostro account with a bank in India, then against an invoice that my trading partner raises with me, I can pay for that in rupees paid into this Vostro account in an Indian bank. Likewise, exporters who want to ship out goods and services from India can be paid from such Vostro accounts in rupees. Why is this development interesting? First off, Vostro accounts are not anything new. They've been around for a while. They were likely not popular or widely used because exporter in any country would prefer to be paid in a currency that does not have a tendency to depreciate over time. So he'd probably be, expected to pay in dollars because the US dollar is a global currency. It deserves its name because it's universally accepted. Mr. G. Padmanabhan, former Reserve Bank Executive Director, says that the most recently issued circular has three things of note. One is messaging between banks. The circular says that partnering banks can decide on any system of messaging as long as it's safe, secure, and efficient. Mr. Padmanabhan says that he can't ever recall the RBI getting down to the granularity of commenting on messaging. The SWIFT system was seen as a globally accepted standard. Now, you may recall that soon after Russia invaded Ukraine, the Belgium-based SWIFT platform gradually began barring Russian banks from participating in the system. This was seen as a punitive action by the West for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The aim was to make it more tedious and difficult for Russian entities to conduct international trade. Now, the RBI circular allows for any messaging system to be used and need not confine banks to the SWIFT system. Second, Mr. Padmanabhan points out is that the surplus in these accounts is allowed to be invested in India, which means the rupee balance in these Vostro accounts can be invested in projects or infrastructure investments in India, or even invested in government securities. So the rupee balance for those partnering countries need not remain idle. It can be used within India to generate some yield. 3. Vostro accounts did not require permission earlier. This time around, the RBI has specified that any bank setting up a Vostro account, Indian bank as an authorized dealer, needs to seek prior approval from the RBI. This is likely because the RBI would like to see which countries are interested in using this facility and whether these accounts are being used for the purpose for which RBI intended them to be. That brings us to the next question. Which countries would be interested in using this facility? This fresh enablement by the RBI seems intended to ease doing business with Russia. Engineering Exports Promotion Council Chairman Mr. Mahesh Desai said that in recent months, trade with Russia had come almost to a standstill and the country had been facing payment issues with Russia. He says the RBI facility will help ease the pressure on payment problems that we've been facing. Former banker and associate professor at SPJIMR, Anant Narayan, says Russia is likely to be the first country to show interest in using this facility. Several reasons to this. Russia has a trade surplus with India, meaning India buys more from Russia than Russia buys back from us. Second, Russia in today's context might not prefer receiving payment in a global currency like the dollar or the euro or even the yen, because it can't trade with such currency in the rest of the world. It is facing punitive actions. Third, it will accumulate surpluses in rupees in Vostro accounts in a jurisdiction that has long been seen as friendly to Russia. And these surpluses won't lie idle. They have an opportunity to be invested in Indian assets to generate some yield. Finally, Russia has a notional foreign currency reserve of about $600 billion, and allowing $20 to $30 billion worth of that to lie in rupee Vostro accounts shouldn't be a big challenge for them. That brings us to the final and most important question. How does all this benefit India as a country? On two counts, oil and rupee depreciation. On the oil front, for June, India imported 950,000 barrels per day, or BPD, of crude oil from Russia. This accounts for almost 20%, 19.7 to be precise, of the 4.8 million BPD that we imported overall. In an earlier episode of Business Matters, we did discuss this and said, we're inching towards 20%, we're almost there. This means that to the tune of about $3 billion per month, lesser foreign exchange outflow if we start paying in rupees. That means the pressure on the rupee, the downward pressure on the rupee would be eased a bit. The rupee in the last few months has been depreciating significantly from the about 70 rupees to a dollar level. It's now breached 79, inching towards 80 to a dollar. But the beneficial impact of strengthening the rupee won't be seen immediately. It will be seen in the medium term. Like we said, credit systems have helped continue to trade between India and Russia, and payment systems have been hampered. Of course, if other countries also show interest in using this facility, then you may see the somewhat immediate impact on the rupee in terms of strengthening the rupee. Rahul Bajoria, Barclays chief economist for India, is saying that the RBI's moves do appear to be aimed at reducing demand for foreign exchange by promoting rupee settlements. But this is still a path that won't be filled with roses for a country like India. There are some pitfalls that are still to be avoided. As Mr. Narayan points out, that large banks in India may not rush to set up this facility of Vostro accounts and so on. Because in case the West's sanctions on Russia expand, banks wouldn't want to be caught in this environment that constrains them. Smaller banks with little other international business may be ideal for the purpose, and if necessary, with a push from the government, may offer such services. So let's see how popular this facility becomes going forward. Till the next episode of Business Matters, it's goodbye from us. Have a lovely week ahead.